Hi, everybody. I'm Kate Hahn. I'm a writer for TV Guide magazine. I cover Westworld. Thank you all for coming. So that was quite an episode. So let's bring out Ed Harris to talk to us about it.
Thank you.
Well, there's quite a bit of incredible work in that episode, and you have to cover a lot of territory. Anyone you know out there? So, when you get a script for Westworld, how do you go through it? How do you analyze it? What kinds of choices do you make based on what you're seeing on the page? And I know you also don't get the other actors' scenes because it's a very secretive show, isn't it? So you're just getting your
No,
scenes.
you get the script.
You get the whole thing?
Oh, sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
Don't necessarily read everything. You know. I'm kidding. No, I mean, seriously, though, we got to the point late in the second season where I would get the scripts and not that professional, but I would really just look at my stuff because I didn't understand what was going on. And a lot of it.
And when you do look at just your stuff, how do you break it down? Are there things that you're looking for as an actor that you have to pay particular attention to in a scene when you're looking at those words?
My guy's been the character's been on this journey for a couple of years, and so it's really just tracking that. And I mean, I do read the scripts, but it is sometimes tricky for me to really decipher exactly what's going on because so many dimensions now and so many time periods. It's confusing. But yeah, there's always. I mean, I don't know how to answer the question exactly, but of course the script is your Bible, and so I just try to get as familiar as I can with it, and what is he doing in each of these scenes? What is his intention? What has happened before? Who am I working with? And just the dialogue, just the words, I really like. They're pretty particular about the script. It's not like something you go and you ad lib a bunch. I mean, it's written pretty carefully, and so I just like to just get so familiar with the language, and just go through the lines and say them out, do them out loud as much as I can in every different possible way with different inflections, different intentions, different meanings to what I'm trying to say. And so you try to cover, because any given line can be said, hundreds of different ways and with all kinds of different feelings and intentions. And so the more I feel I've investigated all of that, the more free I am. Take one, take two, take three to explore it and see, and let it go and see where it ends up,
Well, speaking of the scene partners, you have some really incredible actors to work with in this particular episode. And there's the one scene where the man in black is sitting at Celia Ward's bedside, his wife Juliet, and he thinks she's asleep. And you're talking. It's almost like a monologue, but you have somebody else in the room. Tell us about shooting that scene, what that was like, and is it tough when an actor comes in who hasn't been a big part of the mythology of Westworld, like Celia?
Well, she, everybody was very welcoming to her, and I think she felt fairly comfortable. I mean, she had some tricky stuff she had to do, but no, I felt, I think we got along fine. And in that scene, I mean, that scene is a little tricky because the guy's really talking about this truth of himself that he's never really admitted to on some level, at least certainly not to anyone else. And he's talking to her directly, even though she's asleep. He thinks she's asleep. so you just try to get to that place in you where you're dealing with the deepest part of yourself. And I mean, I've got everything that we all have darkness inside of us, but this guy's basically saying I'm just dark. I mean, I've realized that I'm just like, that's just who I am. And I've pretended I'm not that, and so, you get to that place and you allow that place to, expand in your soul or whatever, and you just try to explain, sorry, honey, but,
right,
this is
right.
just who I am. See you later.
I mean,
I'm going back to Westworld.
Well, I mean, that's a very, very intense place to be as an actor. So on a show like this, are there ways that you kind of recharge between scenes? Can you kind of relax at all? Do you?
Well, as the years go by, I mean, I've been doing this for a while, and one of the things that still it gets harder is trailer time, I mean, you can be on a set for 12 hours and literally be in front of the camera for 5 minutes or,
Right, right.
And that just gets old, man. Because there's only, I don't really like penetrating other material. If I've got things to do, I try to stay in a certain space. And so it's really difficult to, I'm not going to start, working on this script I'm writing, or you read some book that's involving, or it's just hard. It's just like, what you sit, you go to the set, get a cup of coffee, have a catch with somebody, bring my baseball gloves with me. You try to stay loose and stuff, but it's.
So even if you bring your baseball glove and you're playing catch, it's like the most emotionally devastating game of catch you have ever played. Because
it's just fun to stay loose, and it's an intimate thing to do with somebody, even though you're however far apart. I like it.
Mm-hmm. Well, another interesting scene, and I think it's your only scene with Anthony Hopkins in this whole season 2, is that bar scene that we also saw in this episode where you two are talking, and you are very far apart, and you're playing a very mean game of catch in a way, the two of you. So tell me about working with him, and how do you two mesh, and tell us a little bit about that scene.
Well, Tony, I first saw him when he played. What was the guys who kidnapped Lindbergh's kid? Mm-hmm. I forget the character's name. That was a long time ago. That was probably early 70s, maybe. I'm guessing. I'm not sure. And I said, whoa, that guy's, Anyway, he's such a wonderful actor. He's a really generous guy. We get along great. He has a really good sense of humor. And, he's like, it's fun to work with somebody who, you gotta, be there with. I mean, you gotta be there with everybody you work with, but somebody who has that kind of stature, it's just like, pitching to the guy who's leading the league in hitting, or facing the guy who's got the lowest ERA. I mean, you just gotta come up with it,
right. And those characters are both extremely powerful, intense men. Would you say one has a leg up on the other one?
What do you expect me to say? No, I like to think that we're equals. But if anybody has a leg up, it's me.
There you have it.
Well, you have to have some confidence and some, you have to have some self-esteem about this whole business.
Well, he's a pretty badass guy. He's pretty badass.
No, Tony's great, man. Yeah, I like to think it's like a 50-50 proposition, He's got more power in the thing, though. I mean, because he like shows up everywhere. He can, like,
Dr. Ford, yes.
Yeah, I mean, he's like God. I mean, he's like, he could be, turn around, he could be there. I mean, you know, and then everybody, everyone you run into in the park could be him. I mean, it's just, you know, just hard to,
right,
you know, get a leg up on that.
Well, your character does not trust everyone in the park, and there's a really devastating scene with his daughter in this episode, which is just, I mean, brutally hard to watch him go through this, because we know that she's not a host, but he doesn't. So how was shooting that scene? I mean, did you do anything to prepare for that with your scene partner, with the actress, Katja?
Katja, I love working with Katja. You know, she's from, where is she from again?
She's from the Netherlands.
The Netherlands, yeah. But I just really like her, you know what I mean? And I like working with her. And we got along great. And she doesn't hesitate to ask me questions if she has something that she's trying to figure out, and it's actually, she's the one actor that I work with on that show that I'm actually able to say, Katja, you know, by the way, this when this is going on between us, I think blah 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 might work better if we da 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 da, you know, when the director's over there somewhere, you know.
Right. Secret actor planning.
And she really appreciates it, and she really listens, and it's effective. I mean, when we work together that way. But no, I mean, I think we probably ran the lines and stuff and maybe talked about it a little bit, but it was more the process of filming it and, you know, discovering it as we were shooting it, you know.
When you were starting out, did anyone give you any tips like that?
I was doing an episode a long time ago of Del Vecchio, which was a show with Judd Hirsch and I think Charlie Haid, I'm not sure. And the director was, gosh, I don't remember his name, but he was very well known, television director especially at that time. And I was playing some young guy. It was, I don't remember, it was some intense kind of guy who was angry about whatever. And I was so like, he said, he was talking about having a sense of humor, you know? Not that the guy was funny or that there was anything comical about it, but more a sense of a certain buoyancy, a certain life that gives gives this guy a little more color. It's not just this flat thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah, another dimension.
In other words, it made a lot of sense to me. He mentioned Paul Newman when he was talking to me about that. Because Newman always had a certain joy, or some, you know, a certain buoyancy is a good word,
right,
and a sense of humor, you know, and that's so fucking serious about everything, you know.
Right.
Anyway, it made sense to me.
So you brought that into that character when
Probably
you played
not,
it.
but later. But it's one of those things that you remember and that you pick up on.
Right.
You finally go, oh, I see what he said. Wait a minute.
Well, your character is speaking of things you have to play physically. In this episode, your character is injured, and then injures himself. So when you're, how do you work with that in your body? Is that something that you carry around? Are you shaking it off right now, or is it?
Well, you just try to, I think part of what we all try to do physically is stay loose, stay in shape, stay flexible. And so that you just, you got a bullet in your leg and it hurts. And it's, you put it there and it's just that physical sensory awareness of what has happened to you, and you deal with it. I mean, it becomes something that you just allow in a way.
To feel that pain.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, and like on that kind of day, I would probably walk around most of the day limping. You know what I mean? Just to like live it, just to have, make sure like, yeah, Ed, you can't move that leg the same way you move this leg.
Right.
You know. But,
well, as far as preparation for this role, I mean, you've done incredible preparations for some of the films you've done, like for Pollock. You learned action painting, you worked in a studio. Did you do anything in particular to play the Man in Black? And I know he does some things that aren't very nice, so you probably didn't practice those, but what did you do to prepare to play him, to get ready to play him?
I made sure I had a good hat and a good outfit that felt good. That was a big part of it.
Okay.
Because when you put on the Man in Black suit, it's empowering.
Yeah. Yeah.
Seriously.
Okay. No, we feel it. It comes through
and,
on the screen.
So, but in terms of, I mean, actually, I was told, I wasn't told a lot of things about this guy other than he was extremely wealthy, industrialist. I wasn't told that he basically owned the park. I wasn't told a lot of things at the beginning. So I went online and looked at, I said the richest people in America. And I started going through it and found somebody who wasn't really known, but who was incredibly wealthy, I think this guy was in the Northwest. He was into logging and timber. He's probably worth, I don't know, $1 billion or more or something. And it's just like trying to find, okay, what does my guy do? Because so I just made up a bunch of stuff in terms of who my guy was, where he was from, what his company did, and all the holdings that he had, and how much he was worth, et cetera, et cetera. And then I find out something different about him. I say, okay, throw that out the window and, reconstruct it. But, yeah, just stuff like that, just to try to get some identity for the man.
Right.
Well, in the beginning of the show, the viewers did not know that the Man in Black and William were the same person.
Right.
And when did you find out?
Well, we were on a set one day, or the trailers, the home base camp, whatever it's called, and I saw Jimmy Simpson walk by, and somebody said, "That's you, younger." And I said, "What are you talking about?" He doesn't even look like me. And they said, "Yeah, he's you, younger. He's William." And then I found out, oh, yeah, okay, great.
So did you
have fun?
Did you and Jimmy talk about?
We actually did, I mean, yeah. I mean, he would email me or call me or ask me certain questions, or if we were going to do scenes that were kind of repetitive of one another. I think there's some scenes in that thing, Delos, we just wanted to know certain things, or were you going to do this, or are you planning on that, or is there a certain mannerism or something that might, we can echo each other, stuff like that. So we have good lines of communication.
Were there any particular things that you guys decided on?
There may have been, but I do not recall. Seriously.
You're just incorporated into the performance at this point.
Hmm?
They're just incorporated into the performance at this point.
Well, yeah, it was more stuff that he was asking me in terms of something, or he might even, I think he came and watched one of the scenes that he was going to be doing, a similar scene, from earlier on in the life of everything, just to kind of see how it was playing.
Right. Well, I want to get to some of the audience questions now. Sure. This one is from Lauren. And Lauren asks, was there a moment in your career where you discovered what really worked for you as an actor?
Oh, boy. Was there a moment when it really worked for me?
Lauren, you've stumped Ed Harris.
No, I'm just trying to think. I mean, I think you just keep discovering stuff, what works for you, you know, over and over again, and finding new things that work for you. It's. I really. I'm trying to think of.
Is there a moment in a class or a particular
Stillness works for me.
stillness?
There was, I don't remember what, we used to do these exercises at CalArts, and these emotional, like whatever, recall things, you know, or jumps is what Lou used to call them. When you give you a situation, you're with another actor, and you both have an intention, and you blah, blah, blah. But in terms of like the emotional stuff, I remember one time, it's just about stillness, or just about relaxation, just about being present, about feeling your feet, you know, on the earth. And the more I do this, the more, I just was doing this thing. I was working for a few days on Top Gun 2, you know, a couple of weeks ago with Tom Cruise, who really I liked a lot. Hadn't worked with him since The Firm, which was a long time ago, and I was doing this scene, and I knew the stuff, and I found myself like, like, relax, will you? Jesus Christ. You know, that's because the littlest bit of tension is just in the way. Even if it's a tense scene, you just have to feel it in your entire body, you know. And particularly in film, when they're shooting you a lot of times like that, you know, you forget that you have a body, you know. And it starts from down there all the way up, and if that's not on the ground, if you're not relaxed down here, I don't know what's going on up here, but it's going to be affected, you know?
Right.
And so that's something.
Yeah. Well, one of the other questions that someone asked was relating to that was the difference between working on stage, which you do a lot, and working in filmed entertainment. And you just mentioned something, which is you can actually forget that about the rest of your body because the camera's in there. So,
you know, I think the big difference is the nature of it. You know, theater, you get to come out and you play, and you do the play night after night. You know, and every night you put yourself out there and you keep it fresh, and you know, moment to moment. And in film, you shoot a little bit, and then you go sit down for 5 hours or whatever. You know, I always look like take 1, take 2, take 3 to me is like, you know, 3 nights of doing it's, you have an opportunity to keep growing in it, to keep learning, to keep, you know, to expand what you're doing, to deepen it, to explore it. You know, to hopefully do the take where you're basically unconscious and you don't know what you did, but you probably did a good job because you weren't thinking about it, you know. And theater is, you do that, you get the whole, you know, you go out there and you're committed, and you have audiences watching you, and it's a whole give and take thing, and you feel that energy, and, you know, it's just different, you know. In terms of the actual acting of it, to me, I don't find it that different, because you're just trying to tell the truth, regardless, you know. Yes, it's a lot different if the camera's here and you don't hardly have to do anything, and there's all, you know, it's totally in your head and your mind, what your thoughts are. That's what the camera's seeing, but I don't see any difference on stage. That still should be going on, you know.
does it ever become hard to tell the truth? as an actor? When are the moments that it becomes difficult? Because I'm sure a lot of people in this room have those moments where they might not feel authentic.
I mean, that's what you're doing your homework for. I mean, that's what you're, there's no one truth about anything either. There's no one way to do something. There's not one way to do a scene. There's not even the best way. There's like innumerable ways. And it's allowing yourself to realize that, you don't go in there and go, this is how it's going to be this time. And you're like all like set and you're so aware of what the fuck you're doing that it's not even you. It's, right. I'm not making much sense, but what was the question?
I think you made a lot of sense, and I think you answered it very well. About how you stay authentic, or how you continue to tell the truth.
Well, you have to. That's your fucking job. And if you're not doing that, you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing. You're not good. If you think you are and you enjoy lying and enjoy, think you're putting one over on somebody, then that's your business. Great. Some people are really good at that. I just don't like doing that. I like to feel involved with what I'm doing and feel like, that was honest,
Yeah. We have another question from Amber. And Amber wants to know, what actor or director have you learned the most from while on set? And what did you learn from that person?
While on set?
Yes, while on set.
While on set. Well, I worked with Peter Weir a couple times. Truman Show, and then we did this long, what's it called? The Way Back, I guess, which nobody saw, but it was actually a pretty good movie. And one of the things that I guess I learned from Peter is more from a directing standpoint than an acting standpoint, but it's just he's so thorough. In other words, he's so aware of every aspect of the filmmaking, of the scene that he's working, whether it's a button on your shirt or the way your hair is falling or something on the set, some little prop or whatever. He's just really so observant and so aware and so detailed that I like working with him because he's watching carefully. I mean, and also just obviously what's transpiring in the scene. But in terms of what have I learned, read the question again.
What actor or director have you learned the most from while on set, and what was it that you learned? Want to ask maybe Westworld on Westworld? Who did you learn the most from? We could narrow it down. I know you liked working with Lisa Joy, who directed an episode. She's one of the showrunners.
Okay. Okay. Thanks.
We'll go with that.
So, Lisa, being one of the writers of the show and creators of the show, along with her husband Jonah, directed one of the episodes, and I had somewhat fairly good amount to do in that episode, and I don't know if I learned something from her. What she was really helpful with was what exactly is going on with the man in black in this scene. In other words, what's really taking place in his head. I mean, I had my own thoughts, but hers were so much more specific and detailed in a way in terms of I don't really recall what it was, but I remember going, yeah, keep talking to me. That's really helpful, you know. And so it's just that. What's in your head when you're doing all this, playing any character, the character's thoughts, you know.
Right. Well, especially coming from the writer who's spent a lot of time setting it up.
Yeah, no kidding.
Where they want to insert this particular scene in the story and how it's going to drive the story forward. So they really know exactly where you are at that point. And that leads to a question from Lore. And that's, and I don't know if this is possible, but how do you keep track of the chronological timeline of something like Westworld? And that must be, like you were just saying, it's tough, right? You don't always know where he is or how much he knows in a scene. So how do you kind of keep track of that?
Well, I mean, I keep track of my own business, you know, pretty well, because I'll figure it out. And if I have questions, I'll ask, you know. But in terms of the rest of the show, it's like I don't keep track of it because I can't. I mean, I do the best I can. But like the last episode, it's like, what? And I don't have any clue what's going on next season.
No idea whatsoever.
Absolutely none.
Yeah.
Not that they won't inform me of some rough idea at some point, I would imagine. But at this point in time, I have absolutely zero idea. It seems like everyone's leaving the park, and, you know. No, I mean, seriously. No. And the town burned down anyway, so, and the fire, so I don't know. And I don't know if I'm still alive or if I'm a robot or what. I don't know.
What?
I have a sneaking suspicion I'm not going to be on a horse much more.
Why do you say that?
Because I just don't feel it. I don't think the West part of it is going to, I don't know how much it's still going to be in play. Everyone's getting on boats leaving.
So what would you like to see happen with the Man in Black? What would be fun?
I would like to maintain my costume. I want to be the Man in Black. I don't want to be the guy that used to be the Man in Black who's in like street clothes, like doing something else. I don't know though. I'm under contract, so I don't know. Some HBO people are here today, and I'm all for season 3. I just hope I can maintain my character.
I think everyone here is all for season 3 as well. So, hey, thank you so much.
Is that it?
Can
we take any more questions? We have to stop.
If you have anything that we haven't covered that you'd like to share.
Well, if anybody wants to ask me a question or two, then we'll get out of here after that. How's that? Sure.
How did you prepare for directing Pollock, and what was that like directing yourself?
Well, you know, the Pollock thing was this obsession that I had for almost a decade in terms of tracking getting the rights to this thing. And the original script was 262 pages that Barbara Turner wrote, and I spent probably the next 8 years when I wasn't doing other stuff working on that script. And I wasn't planning on directing it at all. I just wanted to play this guy, you know, and I showed it to Peter Weir, talked to Agnieszka Holland, a couple other people, and then there was one director that I talked to who was very interested in doing it, and he had all these ideas about it that weren't there. I was like, no, you know, that's not it, you know. And I just realized that I should just. The guy, Peter Brand, who put up the money, most of it, he said, you know, you could direct it yourself. And then he was buddies with De Niro, and Bob called me and said, Ed, you know, he had just directed his first film. I forget the name of it. And he said, Ed, you should just direct this yourself. I said, and I said, okay. And that was about a year before we started filming. So I just, you know, I was totally immersed in the script. I knew and had visions of what I wanted it to be, and so I just started thinking more and more about it, and drawing some sketches and talking to DP, and figured, I probably knew more than I thought I did about camera and directing and visual images and stuff, and so we just did it, But directing myself, I had a great gal named Candy Trabucco, who's out of the Actors Studio, who I knew when we had the Met Theater in the east of town, Santa Monica Boulevard. She was a member of that theater, and she used to have a class on Saturdays, and we would, some of us, like Holly Hunter or me or Beth Henley or whatever, would go and be with Candy and work with the actors. And I really always appreciated how she worked with the actors and how she had a great bullshit barometer, and in terms of like really calling people on nonsense or whatever. And so I asked her to join me and be like the sounding board or be like whatever. So and she knew what we would wanted to achieve scene by scene, because we would discuss it. And so when I was acting in it, I didn't have to think about it. I could go say, Candy, did that work? Did blah blah blah. And she just was really helpful. She worked with me on Appaloosa too. And if I get this thing going in the spring that I want to shoot, I'll have her work with me again, because she's just invaluable. As a sounding board, as someone you can just talk about the acting part of it with. About not just myself, but all the other actors as well.
I am getting the wrap-up signal, but I
Okay,
just want to know
all right.
if he wants to stay and answer a few, is that okay? Okay, all right. You want to take a couple
Well, we
more?
can have
And I'll-
another one or two. Sure. Back in the middle there. Hi.
So she wants to know, how did you start your acting career from
Well,
the very beginning?
I told this story probably too many times, but I was growing up. I played football and baseball. That's what I really loved to do. I actually went to Columbia University in New York to play football. I think their 43-game losing streak happened after I was there. But it was Ivy League, it was Division I, even though, whatever. I grew up in Jersey, North Jersey. I went to Columbia the freshman year, played ball, wasn't entirely successful, had a couple decent games, but the coaches were idiots. We had to take a bus 100 blocks up to Manhattan to Bakersfield to practice. It was 1971. There was drugs. There was the war. My whole mind started shifting a bit. I hadn't smoked any pot prior to that. Just started looking at the world a little different way. We'd go down to D.C., protest the war. My hair got long. I was working out when I had hair. But I was working out that summer for a sophomore year of football in Oklahoma, where my folks had moved back to and where they're originally from, and I just didn't feel like doing it anymore. And I saw two plays at the Southwest Repertory Theater, which is in Norman, Oklahoma, where the university is, and I was one actor playing Tartuffe in the Moliere play and Sancho Panza in Man of La Mancha. And he was so different and great in both of these parts and having a blast. I think he was a graduate assistant. His name was Pat Rucker. And he was having a great time, and so was the audience. And I was sitting there, and I was going, like everybody else, clapping and going, whoa, way to go, dude. And then I was sitting in the neighbor's porch. They were out of town, and one afternoon I was saying, what am I going to do with myself? I'm not going to play sports anymore. I'm not really that interested in anything that I'm studying. Maybe I could do that acting thing, man. It looked like fun, Plus people were clapping, It's, like scoring a touchdown, you're getting attention and stuff. It's like, So I decided to study acting, and when I went back to Columbia, they didn't have any theater school at that time at all. It was a financial strange time, and I wasn't worldly enough to go to the studio or Herbert Berghoff or whatever. And my dad knew the guy who ran the summer program, in Oklahoma. So I said, I sent them a voice tape, which I'm sure was awful. But I got cast, and I got in the company. I played a Mexican, a Night of the Iguana, with a really bad black wig and makeup. I played a mariner in a tempest, and I played a singing, dancing sailor in Anything Goes, called Porter Musical. And I had a great time. I didn't know what I was doing, and I stayed there and studied at OU with a guy who was a great teacher. He was very controversial, but he was just very demanding. And I took beginning and acting lessons and voice and dance. And one of the first things the guy said was, "This isn't fun and games. This is a way of life. It's a way of looking at the world. It's a way of being in the world. It's a way of appreciating art, dance, music, etc." And it was like, I was a jock. You know what I mean? So it was like a 180 in a way in terms of just what I was starting to pursue. And I liked doing it. I mean, I felt like there was something about it. It was very challenging. And I was learning, and he got fired. And I didn't go back there. I pumped gas, and then I did a production of Camelot in Oklahoma City, playing King Arthur. And one night we did the show, and I didn't remember doing the play at all. I was so involved and so in it, I really didn't remember doing it. I walked off the stage and heard this roar go up, 220 people in Oklahoma City in this little 2/3 round theater, and it was like, whoa. So you spend the rest of your life trying to get back there,
Well, thank
Anyway,
you
that's
so
how
much.
it started.
Thank you so much. That was so generous. Thank you.